Hey Fundraiser, I'm Mary Petersen, and this is Hey Fundraiser, the podcast for development professionals who are done guessing and ready to build a major gift program that actually works. Every week, I bring you the tactics, the language, and the real-world strategy to close bigger gifts, deepen donor relationships, and lead with confidence. Whether you're a one-person shop or a seasoned major gift officer, if you're ready to stop hoping and start engineering, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hey Fundraisers, welcome back to the Hey Fundraiser podcast. I'm so glad you're here because today's episode is a little differently. And honestly, I love this kind of episode because it means I get to hear directly from you. So many of you send me questions, which I love and I want you to keep doing. And they're all such good questions. They're so smart, they're so practical, and they're so clearly pulled from the real day-to-day work of fundraising where you're doing all these things and you might not have all the tools that you need. So before I begin answering some of today's questions, I first want to thank you. I want to thank you for listening, for sending me your real questions and trusting me with the stuff that you're wrestling with. I never want this podcast to feel like I'm just kind of shouting ideas out into the void. I want it to feel like a conversation, like you and I are just sitting at a small dinner table together, like talking through the work in a way that's honest and practical and actually useful. So please keep sending me your questions. If there is something you're stuck on, something you're wondering about, something you're trying to explain to your board or your CEO or your team, send it my way. It might become a podcast episode. You never know. It might become a post. It could be a workshop topic. But more than anything, it helps me know what you actually need. So a lot of fundraising is theories and things like that. But most of us are living inside very specific questions like, who should I call first? Or how do I thank this donor without sounding generic? Or, what do I do when the campaign priority is not what the donor cares about? These are all questions that matter. And today I'm going to answer 3 listener questions. The first is about prospect research you can do in-house with limited tools, and then how major gift stewardship kind of intersects with campaign asks and bespoke asks. The second is about creating a systemic way to steward and thank your donors, like moving them up the giving ladder, keeping them engaged. And the third one is a little bit more personal. Some people want to know how I got into fundraising. So I'm going to give you the skinny. Okay, so the first question is from Lauren Cara George, and I want to thank her for sending this over. Her question is, I'd love to hear more from you about prospect research that can be done in-house with limited tools. I'd also love to learn more about how major gift stewardship intersects with campaign asks and when the right time is to pull away from campaign asks to bespoke asks, and perhaps when it's not the right time to do that. Such a great question because it names 2 things that are constantly happening in fundraising shops. One, you need to identify the right people, but you may not have a research department or the wealth screening tools or, a data analyst that's just sitting down the hall ready to surface prospects for you. And 2, once you do have those right people, you need to figure out how to talk to them about big organizational priorities without forcing every donor into the same campaign box. So let's start with the prospect research. Here is my honest belief. Prospect research does not always begin with a wealth screening tool. It actually begins with curiosity and paying attention, and really it begins in your own donor database. I know that doesn't sound as fancy as we're going to pull some capacity ratings and we're going to do a philanthropic profile. But if you do have a donor database, you have more information than you think you do. The challenge is that most organizations look at their donor database like it's just this depository or receipt machine. Who gave, how much, when did they give, did we send the acknowledgement? That's all important stuff, but your database is not like a receipt machine. It's really more of a relationship map. How has a donor engaged with you? How often is the donor giving? Oh my gosh, there's so many things. First, I usually look at who's giving consistently. not just those who gave that one big gift that one year, but those who have like shown up year over year over year. Like a donor who's given $1,000 every year for the past 7 consecutive years is trying to tell you something, fundraiser. Also, the donor who started at $100, moved up to 250, then moved up to 500, then moved up to 1,000 is also trying to tell you something. A donor gives, well, a donor who gives without being chased is telling you something. So this is what I look for, Lauren, when I'm looking in the database. I look for consistency, and these are all really signals. I'm looking at upgrades. I'm looking at longevity, responsiveness. Are they attending events? Are they volunteering their time? I mean, even are they opening up your emails is kind of a small signal. Are they replying to your emails? That's a much bigger signal. Are they introducing you to someone else? That's a huge flashing neon sign that they're very engaged. And when you're doing in-house prospect research, I don't want you to only ask, like, is there wealth? Like the 3 things are, 1, the wealth is important, right? Like, do they have the capacity to actually make a gift? The second is, do they have a connection or affinity to your organization? And third is, can you actually get in the door with them? Like, is access feasible? So capacity matters, of course, but major gifts require some level of financial ability, but capacity alone is not enough. Like, there are people in your community with tremendous wealth who just don't care about your mission, or they don't know that you exist, or they're not sitting and waiting for like your carefully crafted letter to awaken their philanthropic soul. They may be wealthy, but they're just not prospects yet. And a lot of us, including me for many years, chased these whales who had massive capacity and zero affinity. And I look back, I'm never going to get that time back. So, fundraiser, I don't want you to waste any time on that. A real major gift prospect needs some sort of combination of capacity, affinity, and access. You have to be able to get in the door with them. So if you only have limited tools in your tool belt, build your research around those things. Who has the capacity, who has the affinity and is showing up, and who can you get in the door with? If you're missing one of those 3 things, I personally would bless and release. So here's a super simple in-house research process. First, poll your donors who have consistently given for 3 years or more. That's a good list. Second, poll donors who have upgraded their giving in the last 3 years. I don't care if it's $5 or 5,000. Like, just look at the list. And then third, I would pull a list of donors who have made one unusually large gift compared to their normal giving. So if somebody is giving $100 a year and then all of a sudden they give 500 or they give 1,000, that's a bit of a flag. Fourth, I like to pull donors who attend events, volunteer, serve on committees, or have like personal relationships with the board or the staff. This goes to, are they giving you time, which is, arguably the most precious commodity, or are they connected in some way? And then lastly is I ask the team, the board, or even like key volunteers, like, who on this list do you actually know? Who might be more connected to our mission than they're giving shows right now? Who's really never been personally invited into a deeper conversation? Now, if I'm the staff and the board members can typically look at a lengthy list, but if I'm talking to just a volunteer, I usually just bring like 5 names because you just don't want to overwhelm them. And that's really where the gold is. Like, sometimes your best prospects are not hidden in some expensive screening tool. They're kind of like standing in plain sight, and no one has really just slowed down enough to connect all the dots. And so that's what I'm hoping you can do. If you don't have a budget, the other thing that you can do is really look at publicly available information. But I want you to be very thoughtful here. So, like, yes, you can look at business ownership. Yes, you can look at real estate. You can look at foundation giving, board service, political giving, I think. You can look at LinkedIn. You can look at annual reports. But I really don't want you to spend time turning, like, I'm doing air quotes, prospect research into internet stalking, because the goal is not to know everything about someone. The goal is to understand whether a deeper conversation would be appropriate. And that's the difference. Like, good prospect research should help you make a thoughtful next move. It shouldn't make you weird. So your prospect research should answer questions like this. What might this person care about? Who is already connected to them? What is the most respectful next step? Is there evidence that they've made a significant gift somewhere else? What would the next conversation, how could I make the next conversation feel personal? And have they ever been invited into a more meaningful conversation with us? Like, that's super useful research. But a lot of organizations get tangled up. And I mean, it's almost like analysis paralysis. Like, I've gotten, I see some of my coaching clients and they'll spend all day putting together like a 15-page research profile. And I'll take one look at it and be like, we need to bless and release this person. Like, they just don't have enough affinity, or we can't get in the door with them, or the capacity isn't right. And so really, you don't need super crazy expensive research tools. You just need to answer some of the questions that I just mentioned. Okay, so now let's talk about how this connects to stewardship, campaign asks, and bespoke asks, because this is where we also get a lot of tangles. So when a campaign's happening, the organization often has this set of campaign priorities, right? Like, it could be a building, a program expansion, maybe an endowment, maybe a piece of equipment. It could be comprehensive with, like, lots of different buckets. And the internal pressure becomes, we need to get everyone to give to the campaign, which makes sense, right? Like, campaigns need focus, they need momentum, campaigns need priorities and leadership gifts. And we really need everybody rowing in the same direction. But donors are human beings. They're not really campaign units. And so a campaign priority may be the organization's most urgent need, but it may not be the donor's deepest motivation. So this is where stewardship comes into play and is so important. Major gift stewardship is not just thanking someone after their gift. It's actually the ongoing work of helping the donor understand the difference their giving makes. It's about deepening the trust in a lovely, organic way, learning about what they value, and creating the conditions. This is the most important part, creating the conditions for the next meaningful gift. So when you're in campaign, stewardship should be doing two things at once. It should be connecting the donor to the larger campaign vision, and it should be helping you understand where that donor's head, heart, and gut are pulling them. Now, if you've listened to my podcast or read my books, you know that I like to kind of categorize donors into, they give in three ways. Some give from their head. They want to talk about numbers and outcomes, and they want a very strong case, and they want to understand the strategy. And, they're going to ask questions like, how is this going to scale? Or, let's take a look at the budget. I mean, those are donors that give from their head. Some donors give from their heart. They want that emotion or almost the proximity to your programming. And they want to understand the human elements of the impact. They also love stories. Okay. And then some donors give from the gut, like they want trust, but they also follow their instincts. They want to know, making this gift feels right to me. And I have a good feeling about the people who are leading this campaign, that they're capable of doing all these things. So your stewardship should help you learn which kind of donor you're talking to. Because when you know whether the campaign ask is the right ask as is, or if it needs to be shaped a little differently. Hey, fundraiser, before you sign up for another fundraising conference where you might leave with a good tote bag but zero strategy to raise more money, let me invite you to Major Gift Momentum. This is my private coaching group where you'll get weekly coaching calls with me, access to my full Major Gift curriculum, and a community that's actually moving the needle. Major Gift Momentum isn't based in theory, it's based in action. Members are closing 5- and 6-figure gifts within 3 months of joining. Heather just closed a $245,000 gift. Jacelyn just closed a $212,000 campaign gift. And Georgette just got a $500,000 commitment. All within 3 months of joining Momentum. Each of these Momentum members didn't think the donor would give that much, but once I taught them my method, they are raising money at a whole new level. So would you like in, fundraiser? If you do, go to heyfundraiser.com/momentum and let's get started. Now, I also think that once you can figure out if your donor is giving from the head, heart, or gut, you should solicit them in that way. I talk about that in my book called What to Say, 12 Major Gift Scripts to Get a Yes. That is a way to connect to your donor, is to give them messages that they feel good receiving. Now, stewardship should also be based on the head, heart, and the gut. Like if somebody gives from their head, you don't want to call and keep giving them story after story after story. You want to call and give them outcomes and let them know where you are with the budget of this particular thing and all of that, right? So anyway, I just kind of wanted to put that out there. Now, the other question that Lauren kind of gets to is, when is the right time to pull away from a campaign ask and move toward a bespoke ask? First, I don't really think of it as pulling away from the campaign. I think of it as translating the campaign into the donor's language, if that makes sense. So a bespoke ask does not have to mean abandoning the campaign. It means the gift opportunity is tailored enough that the donor can see themselves in it. So, for example, let's say your campaign is raising money for a new community health center. One donor, their passion area might be behavioral health. Another might care about children. Another donor may care about access for rural families. Another is going to care about, physician recruitment and retention. Another may care about naming the lobby because their family has this deep legacy in the community and with the organization. Those can all be campaign gifts, but they should not all sound like the same ask. The campaign is the container. The bespoke ask is the invitation. So you move toward a more bespoke ask when the donor has given you information that tells you what matters to them. You also move in that direction when the donor's capacity suggests they could make a transformational gift, but only if the opportunity is meaningful enough. You would also move toward a bespoke ask when the standard campaign language is like too generic for the relationship you've built. And I know you might think that hardly ever happens. It happens a lot more than you think, fundraiser. The other thing is you tend to move toward a bespoke ask when the donor has asked a specific question, shown repeated interest in one area, or even like shared a personal story that clearly connects to a very certain part of your mission. When you can make asks that are super tailored, that tells the donor that you listened. It tells them that they're not part of just like a mail merge with like an insert the field here. And it also tells them that you're not trying to wedge them in to an institutional need. And really what you want to say is, based on what you've shared with me, I'd love to invite you to whatever's relevant. But there are times when you should not move to a bespoke ask. You should not move to a bespoke ask just because you're afraid of making a campaign ask, which also you think that would be rare. That's not very rare. Sometimes fundraisers and I mean this with love, but they kind of dress up avoidance as strategy. And they'll say things like, I think we need to customize this more. When really it's fear that's holding us back from like putting a big number on the table. So if the donor's aligned with your campaign, understands the priorities, has been cultivated well, has the capacity, it's time to make the ask. And so you also should not move to a bespoke ask if your organization cannot actually deliver on the thing. And that's a big one. Like you don't want to create custom gift opportunities that your organization cannot manage. Like your finance team can't track or your organization cannot sustain. And that's when some of these asks become a bit of a burden, and that's not great. Some donors actually love the momentum of a campaign. They love the thermometer, they love the challenges with the matches, and they love that they're not the only ones stepping up, that other people are joining them. And then, this group of people is going to take the organization to the next level, and they want to be part of that moment. For those donors, you don't want to over customize. You want to let them be part of that bigger story. And finally, don't move to a bespoke ask if it creates mission drift, right? Like a donor's passion matters, but it should never outrank your mission and your strategic plan. So if a donor wants to fund something that pulls the organization away from its strategy, fundraiser, bless and release that idea with as much grace as you can. And that's the end of that. Okay. So the second question is, I find that most organizations don't have a systemic method to thank their donors, move them up the donation ladder, or maintain engagement. What do you suggest? And I want to thank Rich Mitchell for that. Yes, this is so true. They have a donor engagement problem because many organizations haven't actually taken the time to build the system. And I want to be very clear about this. Gratitude cannot only exist in your personality, right? Like if your donor stewardship plan depends entirely on one very warm, very thoughtful, very overextended fundraiser, remembering to do all the things, that's not a system. That's like a person trying to hold the whole donor experience together with like sticky notes and maybe caffeine. And eventually something's going to get missed, like the donor doesn't get called, the first time gift doesn't get acknowledged in the right way, a major donor only hears from you when you need money, the loyal donor gets the same receipt as everyone else gets. A donor who is at the $1,000 level could move up to the 10K level, is never invited because nobody had a plan. So yes, we need systems. But when I say system, I don't mean something cold or robotic. A good stewardship system makes warmth really repeatable. And that's the goal, right? Warmth repeated, gratitude repeated, meaningful touch points repeated, opportunities for deeper engagement repeated. So here's what I suggest. First, I would build a donor journey by segment. Not all donors need the same thing. A first-time $25 donor does not need the exact stewardship plan as a $10,000 donor. A monthly donor should not be treated the same as someone who maybe gave 5 years ago. And a major donor should not only receive the annual report and the gala invitation in between asks. So this is how I've done it in the past, and this worked really well. And so it really is around simple segments. Here's what I started with, and this is how I communicated, how I solicited, cultivated, asked, and then stewarded by these 8 groups. So first-time donors is one. They should be put on a journey that's automated, by the way, because I care about your sanity. Monthly donors, they should have different checkpoints throughout the year that increase engagement. Loyal donors, they, at any level, they need a stewardship journey. Your mid-level donors, You should be constantly educating them about what is needed and how they could plug in. Major gift prospects. So these are people who are, you know, coming in and out of your orbit, haven't made a major gift yet, but they're on the radar. They could definitely be cultivated, solicited, and stewarded in a special way. Your current major donors, of course, campaign donors, and then your lapse donors. So for each of those 8 groups, I have different communication strategies. I have different cultivation strategies, engagement tactics, solicitation tactics, and stewardship efforts. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but once you kind of map it out, it's really not. And so many databases these days, you can create automated journeys. That is a beautiful thing, fundraiser. I was just on a coaching call this morning talking to a school in Philadelphia, and we were talking about, when somebody makes a first time gift, they should be put on like an 8 to 12 week journey that feels very personal. Like the donor doesn't always know that it's automated. And they're only going to be in this journey once because you're only a first time donor once. But I mean, we kind of mapped through like, okay, what does the first 8 to 12 weeks look like? What's the cadence? What's the messaging? And then at 12 weeks, we're going to ask for another annual gift. So there's a lot of strategy with each of these 8 groups, and there's a lot of great automations that you can put in place. So you have these 8 groups. Then I want you to ask, like, what is the donor experience in the first 12 weeks, in the first 6 months, in the first 12 months after the gift? Not like, what do we randomly send when someone remembers, but what should their experience be? So I want to give you a little bit of what we mapped out this morning. So a first-time donor, maybe the journey is something like this. They get an immediate receipt, right? They get a nice, warm thank you email within 48 hours. Within 7 days, they get a personal call, like depending on the size of the gift, but somebody is going to call and say thanks. They get a welcome email that tells them like what to expect over the next, 6 months. At 30 days, they might get an impact story related directly to the fund that they gave to. At 90 days, an invitation to just a low pressure engagement opportunity. And then a second gift invitation at the right time. So with the school in Philadelphia, we decided like around week 10 to week 12, we want to ask for another annual fund gift. Now, for a loyal donor, the journey is going to look a little different. And this is just off the top of my head, but here's an example. Like one, you can thank them with language that talks about their consistency, not just the most recent gift, but show them that you're paying attention. So thank them for their consistency. Maybe show them the cumulative impact, their lifetime giving impact to your organization. Within 30 days, I would invite them to something behind the scenes. And this can be in a small group. It doesn't have to be a one-on-one tour. Within 45 days, I would try to have a meeting and ask them what inspires them to keep giving. And then after that meeting and after you've kind of qualified, at day 60, you're going to consider whether they belong in maybe a mid-level program or a major gift portfolio. So as you can see, what I'm trying to do is communicate in the right way, introduce ways for people to plug in and raise their hands, also introduce ways for two-way dialogue, right? Like we're so good at putting messages out there, but maybe put a survey, maybe, invite people to, donuts with David, your executive director, whatever. Just make sure there's ways for two-way dialogue. And I believe in a relationship rhythm. This is going to be in an upcoming podcast, but I believe that for major gift prospects and donors, that you should be in touch every 10 to 14 days during active cultivation, and then a minimum of every month for the first 6 months after they make a major gift. So, not every touch point's an ask. In fact, most are not. Most are gratitude. It's about impact, access, invitations, personal check ins, mission updates, donor specific follow up. I mean, these are the ones that where you send a note and say, I saw this and thought of you. And this is where stewardship really becomes relationship. So, the second thing I want you to think about is a thank you standard. Every organization should really know exactly what happens when a gift comes in, and not vaguely, right? Like exactly what happens. So, here are some standards that I love. Every gift will be receipted within 48 hours or acknowledged. All first time donors receive a welcome message. All donors over $500 receive a personal call. All gifts over 1,000 receive a call from a fundraiser or a board member. Another one I really like is, all major gifts receive a customized thank you within 48 hours and a personal follow-up within 1 week. So these are the different things that I want you to kind of be thinking about. So you also need thresholds, because without threshold, gratitude can become inconsistent. And inconsistency is where donors start to feel like ATMs, right? So it's really about, what am I doing? What am I doing next? And how can I get this done? So when you are stewarding, I don't want you to use vague words. I mean, even when you're writing down your own plans in your own notebook or you're journaling, like if you say like, oh, I need to steward Jane. No, I need to cultivate Barry. No. Be very specific. I need to call Jane and thank her for attending the tour. I need to call Barry and tell him that I saw him featured in the newspaper. I need to ask Priya if she would like to come in and meet our new executive director. I want to invite Mark and Rebecca to a small dinner party. These are the things, right? That you're being very specific. And if there's no best next action, that also kind of tells you something. Either the donor needs to be blessed and released from like active management, or maybe you haven't been curious enough. Now, with curiosity comes pathways for upgrade. And this is where like move them up the donation ladder kind of gets tricky, because a lot of organizations treat upgrading like math. They say they gave 100, so next time I'm going to ask them for $250. Or they gave $250, so now I'm going to ask them for $500. Like that works in annual giving, sure. But in major giving, upgrading is not math. It's more about meaning. You do not move a donor from 1,000 to 10,000 because your spreadsheet says this is the calculation. You move them because of the relationship, the interest, the opportunity. Like you're making change in the world that the donor wants to see happen, and they're funding that. The gift has to make sense. So yes, use your giving history, but you want to start asking yourself, like, have these people been engaged? Are they responding? Do they understand the need? How can I talk to them about their current giving and maybe what's on the horizon for the organization? Like, have we really put a meaningful opportunity in front of them? And if the answer is yes, then it's time to make the ask. The other thing that I talk to my clients about is like a monthly list. So once a month, you should review your top donors and prospects. Who needs to be thanked? Who needs to get an impact update? Who's ready for the next conversation? Who's showing signs of disengagement? And who are we asking in the next 30, 60, and 90 days? Like this just keeps things on track. And then lastly, donor engagement doesn't really improve because everyone has good intentions. It actually improves because somebody put it on their calendar to do. So stop maybe thanking donors for just gifts. Thank them for everything. Thank them for showing up. Thank them for asking thoughtful questions, for introducing you to somebody, for taking the call, for reading the proposal, for caring enough to push back on a concept. You know, thank them for giving you their time. There's so many things. And, you know, this is one of the things that I learned early on in my career was to thank people at every single turn. This is stewardship. And when you do that consistently, donors feel connected in between asks. And when they feel connected, that moves people up. And it's not about pressure, it's about connection. So, Rich, thank you so much for that question. Okay, the third question came from Rebecca. How did you get into fundraising? So I love this question because I did not grow up thinking like someday I'm going to be a major gift officer. I don't think most of us did that actually. Like most of us found fundraising through a side door, or we stumbled upon it, or someone saw something in us, or along the way we just saw something and realized that the work is important. So I got into fundraising. So I went to the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio, and I graduated and I took a job in the marketing department of a children's museum in Dayton. Such a great museum. And I was doing my little marketing thing and I would see these fundraisers, like they would bring in gifts and something awesome would happen. Like the roof stopped leaking, or a planetarium was built, or a new traveling exhibit was coming in, or I don't know why, but for some reason, the museum had this massive, like 200-pound, 22-foot long Burmese python named Rajiv. And, Rajiv got a new enclosure. Like it was so evident that like a gift would come in and something awesome would happen. And so I could see the impact of these gift officers. I mean, it was just amazing. And I thought, I want to do that. And frankly, my marketing was like, I was just constantly pushing messages out, right? Like I would talk to them and these fundraisers would talk about these meaningful, deep connections they would have with people and donors. And it was just so cool. So I thought, oh my gosh, I want to do that. So a job opened up, annual giving and membership coordinator job. And I applied and got the job and I have never looked back. So I've worked in annual giving, major giving, mainly with individuals. I way smarter people than me write grants. But when it comes to raising big gifts from individuals, like the last 25 years has been, oh God, so joyful and so incredible. I can't really imagine being in any other field. And I hope, Fundraiser, that you feel the same way. Like we get a front row ticket to see people make amazing change in the world. And, our sector is charged with solving a lot of these issues, right? Like we feed the hungry, we educate our youth, we take care of the sick. And I know there are some government subsidies here and there. It is shrinking, but our sector deals with a lot of those societal issues. And I don't know, I'm just proud to be a part of it. I hope you are too, Fundraiser. So I love these questions. They're really kind of all connected because prospect research is about paying attention. Stewardship is about paying attention. Campaign asks are about paying attention. Moving donors up the ladder is about paying attention. And even, how I got into major gifts, I kind of was paying attention. I was watching these people bring in these gifts and do these amazing things. And this is the work, right? Like we need systems, we need strategy, we need portfolios and research and campaigns and clear asks and next steps and all the things. But underneath all of it, fundraising is really, at the end of the day, it is the discipline of paying attention to people. Like, what do they care about? What have they told us? What are they next ready for? what would be meaningful to this person? What would be too much? Like who are they and how do they want to express themselves philanthropically? Like this is the magic. So to the listeners who sent in these questions, thank you. Truly, you made this episode better. And to everyone listening, send me your questions. You can always email me at mary@heyfundraiser.com. Or I have something called SpeakPipe, which I'll put the link below. And you can leave me little voicemails of your questions. And I want to hear it all. Like, what are you wrestling with? The practical stuff, the messy stuff, the I don't know how to say this to my board stuff. I have a donor meeting tomorrow and I'm panicking stuff. Like, send it all. Because if you are wondering about it, I promise another fundraiser is also wondering about it. And that's why we're all here, because we want to make this work feel clearer and calmer and more human and actually doable. So thank you, fundraiser, for listening. Now go call a donor, have a great donor meeting, close some gifts, and let me know what questions you have. Fundraiser, thank you for being here. This work you do, it matters. You are the bridge between generosity and impact, and don't let anyone, including the hard weeks, convince you otherwise. If today's episode gave you something useful, please pass it along. One share, one text to a colleague, one review on Apple Podcasts. That's how this show reaches the people who need it most. Come find me at heyfundraiser.com, and I'll see you next Friday.